Hi, thanks for tuning in to watch the video, and what we're going to be doing today is going through a Baldur's Gate 3 character creation, as well as just talking about the inspiration for that character and how it all came together. What you're seeing here is an image of something I just randomly stumbled across. I think it was on Twitter initially, and it just seemed like a cool looking axe that just brain-elated and inspired a whole character concept. A cool magical girl anime style flipping a long shaft halberd here with the axe head on the end and the hearts. It just all kind of like the bubbly nature. If you've seen shows like Madoka Magica, that like naivete protagonist kind of thing, dumb but headstrong, but determined all nonetheless, and still like loving and bubbly and friendly and all that kind of stuff. And just kind of the pink mixed with a little bit of this green, it all sort of comes together in the inspiration. And you'll see that when we actually get to the character creation design parts of the video and so on. But as much as this image came across my into my existence so randomly, it's not to say that this character is or would necessarily use this weapon, although it'd be pretty cool if like somebody could like mod this into the game and actually make it a weapon. But anyway, something along this line anyway would be I just think it's cool. I thought it was cool, and it inspired me to think of a character that could wield such a weapon similarly, or just otherwise just inspire the concept of going down this path for the magical girl inspiration. But before we get into that, I thought I should take a moment to really dig into it and just find out, like, is this thing even real, or what? Where does it come from? And does it actually have any real cultural significance? Because as much as our character will be largely divorced from the actual item and its any real use in terms of our fantasy for ourselves, it's important to, as much as there's an inspiration that just comes from the imagery, it's felt evocative. I'm curious, and I'm sure you're curious too. What is this? Where did it come from? So let's dive into that history a little bit before we get into the character creation, and maybe it'll be inspirational to you just to learn about history and stuff. What is this axe head? Where did it come from? So here's a tweet from Weird Medieval of an axe with a heart-shaped hole in the blade from apparently Japan in the 14th century. So looking into this a little bit further, I was able to source back the image to this site, the Nara National Museum, narahako.go.jp if you're interested. And they've got the source images here of the file. It is an important cultural property ritual axe for a mountaineering priest of the Shugen sect. And what does that mean? So just to read on a little bit about what it says on this website alone to get some cultural history, which is, I assume this is a National Museum of History, so about Nara period. It is a ritual axe, symbol of virtue, which was supposed to cut off the worldly temptations of Buddhist monks who were under training on mountains. So a mountaineer's symbolic ritual axe that symbolize their virtue and cutting off from temptation, part of Buddhist philosophy. Usually the monk who walks at the head of the party is holding a ritual axe, so leading the party with their ritual axe. And even divorced from the actual cultural significance of it, that this idea of a virtuous person who is a leader really goes along with the idea of the character that we want to create. So that's like a neat coincidence, I'd say. But these ritual axes, and I'm going to butcher this, I'm sorry. These ritual axes were called Niyubu no Ono. And my apologies for those pronunciations, but apparently that just means mountaineering axe, as monks used to have real axes to make way when they join the training on the mountains. The cutting edge of the blade is curved, whereas the head of the blade is made in the shape of a flower, and there are two heart-shaped open work decorations where the hearts are rimmed. The handle's made of wood on both ends. Although it is a ritual implement, it has several characteristics of a tool of practical use. A ritual tool with practical characteristics indeed fits into the mountaineering priests. So we're not going to be looking to make a priest or a monk necessarily It was really just a jumping off point to, have your own inspiration. But it's really cool to look into the actual history of the thing you saw online and thought was cool. The Twitter guy here actually goes on to explain a little bit further than just what the source on the museum says, that the eye here is not actually a heart. It was a inome, which represents the eye of a wild boar. So that's a cool detail. It's not even really a heart. There's even more to this. Let's dig into that even further, because now I'm curious. So an inome, literally to mean boar's eye, they are heart-shaped elements that often feature on Japanese arms and armor, including the tsuba and other sword mounts, arrowheads, polearm mounts, just like we just saw, etc. So the inome refers to the bravery and determination with which a provoked wild boar would attack its attacker. And you can see another example here in like an arrowhead. So that's really cool. There's a lot more to this, and obviously you can do your own research if you're more curious to dig into it. But I just thought that was a neat thing to share because, it's not just a cool medieval looking weapon. There is significance behind it. And what we're going to do today is just sort of take inspiration. I like the idea of a polearm wielding person who is, a leader and exhibits virtue, and the pink and green coloration and the heart, even though it's not really a heart symbology, and just being brave, it really fits into the protagonist character kind of thing that I had in mind for this. So we're going to just sort of take that wave of inspiration and apply it to Baldur's Gate 3. I actually had already made this character in anticipation of, hopefully playing something like it for actual D&D 5e. And you can see a character sheet that I had filled out here where I have the character's name. That was the inspiration from it. A couple of level 8 was the build that I kind of thought this really started just the hum and sing for me on a lot of levels. You see that I've taken a magic item that I don't necessarily have, the bracers of defense there, and we went full hexblade. So I talk a little bit about that in the part coming up that you'll see, and why Pact of the Blade and my charisma modifier in my build here. You can see somewhat dexterous, constitutional, not smart, not wise, but lots of charisma. It's a bit of a power gamer build, and the polearm factors into that concept. The personality traits based on the folk hero, judging people by their actions, not their words. I'm confident in my own abilities, and I do what I can to instill confidence in others. I believe in destiny, that no one will steer me from my higher calling, and that I have a family, but I have no idea where they are. One day I hope to see them again. Maybe I've left them far behind on my quest for adventure, or, of course, most protagonists have to floss their family along the way. Rustic hospitality is one of the features as being a folk hero for your background. And my one flaw here, well, I'm sure she has many, but I'm convinced of the significance of my destiny and blind to my own shortcomings and risk of failure. So we've got lots of inspiration there that I started at. Obviously I started as a half elf, and I talk about that a little bit. The feats that I wanted to take in this build were polearm master, obviously, because I was a polearm focused character, Pact of the Blade, and elven accuracy. So that's why I was a half elf, because, well, it's a really good feat. One of the other things that you get as a benefit of the all level 8 warlock build was the invocations, like Armor of Shadows. I know I could have taken armor, but I felt like not wearing armor was it just felt more flavorful to me in the end. And Cloak of Flies. So that was another invocation that I thought sounded really cool, although, in hindsight, doesn't really work with the whole 5-foot radius, 10-foot reach synergy of being a polearm wielder. But I digress. If you get close enough to me, you're gonna get a little bit scared by my I was imagining kind of like being like Pigpen from the Charlie Brown with cloak, the dust constantly covering him, sort of like that, but with like the cloak of flies. I don't think imagine it being like flies. Maybe it's more like butterflies. You know, she's kind of got that ethereal, fae, magic, fairy vibes going on. So we'll see. Maybe we'll get there in our Baldur's Gate 3 build. But I just wanted to take a bit off the top to bring you in and show you what was sort of the inspiration for the character. Obviously, this was a build version that I did as all Warlock. I also did a split version also as a Paladin, Oath of Devotion in this case, but you'll see where we're going to pick a different path here and really lean into the fairy fae angle of being a forest gnome. But this was just an alternate version where we were a Paladin and Warlock multi-class, and I'm going to go with the Paladin piece too, because I just feel like the whole Oath quest Paladin vibe also fits with our heroic protagonist type character. So this is just an alternate build. The important thing is you really want actually to hit level 5 in one of the classes so that you can get your extra attack and keep pace damage wise. The downside of multi-classing often is you have to make sacrifices like that in terms of like what level you get certain things. And if you didn't take extra attack, you really need Eldritch Smite from the Warlock in order to make up for that. So that basically lets, oh wait, no, that's just instead of a Paladin. So instead of a Paladin, you can have Eldritch Smite as an invocation so that you can essentially Divine Smite like a Paladin would. And then also the Thirsting Blade is pretty critical to getting essentially extra attack without actually having the extra attack feature like you would with the Paladin. Anyway, I digress. This is all 5th edition stuff, and I said we were here for a Baldur's Gate 3 video. So let's get into that, and we'll transition to... And I just have to say, what you're about to see is actually footage that I took as part of a test to see if I could stream this on Twitch. So you're going to see in the video that it doesn't really work out, and my computer just can't quite seem to handle it. And I tried switching, and I reran a test with DirectX 11. It didn't really help. I just think my PC isn't powerful enough. So if you want to help me get a better PC, just, you know, support the channel in any way you can. If you follow, this is a brand new channel, that'd be really cool. Give us a like, put the comments in there, you know, do all that kind of stuff. And maybe I'll even set up one of those Patreons down the line and you can support me directly, or a PayPal or something like that. But, you know, look for a link. When I do it, it'll be in the description at the very least. But anyway, I'm going to cut now to the footage for that I took as part of that, where we actually go through the character creation setup. I'll just have to admit to myself that I'm not going to be able to actually stream this on Twitch, but if you do go follow on Twitch, I'll stream some different content there, one that my computer can actually handle playing and streaming at the same time. And, you know, we'll get there eventually, so you might as well go follow ahead of time now. Anyway, not going to re-record going through all the character creation stuff, the actual setup. We're actually going to get into playing the game in the next video after this, and I thought this would be a cool way to sort of semi-salvage all of that failed stream, as well as get into all of the cool historical context and the inspiration that really drove my first inkling of wanting to try to play this art roleplay. Thanks for listening, and I hope you found this stuff interesting and, you know, enjoy learning some history and some, you know, cultural appreciation along the way as we, you know, go off on our own direction. And who knows if we'll even end up using a polearm in this build. But we are going to play a Paladin / Warlock eventually at some point, you know, in some capacity, in a similar build to what I was just showing you that I made for 5th edition D&D. Anyway, this is Be the Gamer 100, and let's go to the rest of the build for Baldur's Gate 3. Thanks for watching. Hello, welcome to Baldur's Gate 3 and this channel. It's Be the Gamer 100, and you probably read that when you clicked on it, maybe. Anyway, I'm testing out this brand new setup today, and we're going to start a new game of Baldur's Gate 3. It's the first time I'm doing a live Twitch stream too, so, you know, go follow me on Twitch. I am a brand new channel here, so, you know, all the help that you can provide with those likes, subscribes, or, you know, whatever the thing you want to do is it all helps out a lot. So we're going to try honor mode today, and we're going to come into this. I think any game of Baldur's Gate 3, you know, if you're going to try to role play your character or something, you got to have like a concept in mind. And the concept that I want to play today is one that I've had in the back burner of my brain for D&D 5th edition, actually, because I'm a big fan of playing that game. But, you know, it's hard to play and get that many games going together. So I end up making a lot of characters that I just can't always find a game to actually play in. So today's inspiration that we're going to try to recreate or create in Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be a magical girl inspired lawful type. I'm thinking something, you know, along the lines of a naivete, Madoka Magica type character persona. And we're going to try to create that in the best way possible. I might actually do a separate little rundown of how I kind of came up with this concept of this character for 5th edition and how I built that out. And by comparison, how we're going to have to build it maybe slightly differently, because Baldur's Gate 3 mechanics work slightly differently than regular D&D mechanics. But nonetheless, we're going to do a magical girl inspired paladin from level 1, so that we're going to take the oath and we're going to try to stick to it. I might dip into some warlock classes, because that was my original inspiration for this class, which was to use the Hexblade Warlock to use Charisma as your weapons damage type. But we don't really have Hexblade in BG3, but we do have the Pact of the Blade, which gives in Baldur's Gate 3, which doesn't in 5th edition, a different mechanic that lets you actually use your charisma as your weapons damage type, as opposed to, you know, strength or dexterity, depending on if it's a finesse weapon or whatever kind of weapon it is. So all that being said, as the game loads up here in honor mode, we're going to have to start by creating the character. And like I said, we're going to start with a paladin from level 1. That way we can kind of really dive into the role play of the situation. And you know, I'll probably just have to cut some of this time out because the game is taking a long time to load. But if you want to support the channel in some kind of way, maybe there will be a link to something that can do that in the description at some point. And maybe I can get a better graphics card sooner or later, which might help this run a little faster or a little smoother. But nonetheless, so when we're talking about magical girl inspiration, I think the do-gooder, the lawful good aspect of it is really important. So, but I'm also thinking along the lines of, like, you know, being sweet and kind and like good to animals and such. My original inspiration for this was a young girl, half elf or elf, partly because, you know, optimizers love elven accuracy feat, which exists in 5th edition. But one of the main things was actually a reach weapon halberd. But I don't know. I might just end up going a little bit more blasty. And because Baldur's Gate 3 lets you restat and reclass, there's no real reason to not just kind of go with the basic defaults when it comes to picking your stats and such. So we can kind of start off with a more traditional paladin build, and then maybe eventually when we get to a high enough level where we can afford some multi-classing into warlock to pick up the Pact of the Blade and use charisma for our main damaging weapon and such, we'll be able to kind of switch that up and restat the character. So the first things first is we got to build it out, and then we got to get that far in the game. You might have seen on the channel, the only other run that I've got so far on Baldur's Gate 3 was just a quick test that I did about a month ago, just to see how all my setup here would work. And we just went through and died real quick on the honor mode, and you know, that was fun into itself. But we're going to be a little bit more serious about this one and try to not die and take this honor mode seriously. I'm not sure if we do die in honor mode, maybe we'll just continue the game in custom mode, but I thought, why not? Why not at least start off and see how far we get and then see what the game turns into? In our custom character creation here, we can either play as the origin characters, which are the voiced NPC companions that we get along the way, or we can choose the Dark Urge, which has its own companion or story elements added. But the regular custom class, I think, is going to be the perfect one for this. And instead of an elf, like I was saying about the original concept that I had, I'm thinking of going gnome, because I feel like the gnome character really will better embody our magical girl concept. Gnomes get you 25 speed, which is the detriment of having to play the shorter races, but they get some other stuff. Gnome cunning gets you advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws, so that's pretty nice. Advantage means you get to roll twice. You in this game you roll d20s, and 2 d20s and take the higher is better than 1 d20. You can also get to pick your subrace, so rock gnomes, deep gnomes, which live in the Underdark, which we eventually get to see in this game, and forest gnomes. Forest gnomes are the ones that I'm going to pick because they get speak with animals for free, and it just sort of feels thematic with their whole tricksy forest spirit type of thing. They also get dark vision to 40 feet. And for the class, like I said, we're going to start off with Paladin to really lean into the concept. And once again, with Paladins, you also take an oath. So your power is divine, inspired by the oath that you take. And the oath that we want is actually this one, the Oath of the Ancients. And I think that sort of fits with the whole forest gnome theme of everything here. Healing Radiance is a action. It's a class action that we get, so we get some extra healing. This is unique to Baldur's Gate 3, I believe, because I don't remember Healing Radiance, but maybe I just haven't played enough Paladins. Oath of the Ancients tenets. So these are the tenets that we have to abide by in order to keep our oath. If we do any actions, and this is where the role play really comes into the game, is if we do any actions in the game that go against our oath, we're going to become an oath breaker, and that's a whole other path. And maybe we'll see. If I hopefully not do it accidentally, but being on honor mode, that also keeps you kind of honest, because you can't save scum or go back or anything. So, whatever happens, happens. Kindle the light through acts of kindness, and kindle the light of hope in the bleakest hollows of despair. So we're going to try to bring hope to everybody with our magical charms. Shelter the light wherever love blooms. Stand against the devilry that would snip its stem. And preserve your own light. Delight in culture and small joys. Preserve the light in your own heart. So we're just going to be super posy all the time. And let's see. I think for our background gets you different skill proficiencies. And for this one, I'm really feeling like the folk hero embodies the essence of the character that we're going for. So animal handling and survival are the two skills that you get as a folk hero. I figure if we're inventing a background story for her, she's, she maybe saved her small town village before going off and choosing to adventure throughout the realms to bring her light to everybody there. So in terms of the ability points, obviously the game auto assigns things, and it suggests that as a paladin, strength being your main ability, your primary ability that you're going to need. That kind of makes sense, and it auto-assigns. We get a +2 and a +1 bonus. It auto-assigned them accordingly, because charisma being your spellcasting modifier as a paladin is your second best stat. But because this game will let you restat later, I'm not super concerned. You can kind of just go ahead and go with whatever it gives you here. But I think I am going to reassign this, because you see these scores here, even numbers will give you a modifier. So if you go over to the other side here, you can see the modifiers actually. Ooh. Oh no, my game freezing. I think the streaming element is really killing this. This is my first time doing the stream as well as the game, so it might be having a bit of a harder time processing the recording, the streaming, the running the game, all these things. So we might have to give this a second shot and restart on. I'll try it on DirectX instead of Vulkan mode. But you can see here from the stream strength you get +3, but that is based on your 16 strength. The 17th number doesn't actually do anything to the modifier. Just like, you know, if you have 12, you get a +1. So I'm thinking instead of our +1 going to charisma here, where it's doing no good, I'm going to reassign that +1 to Constitution, which will give us +1 there and allow us to get a +2 instead. And we still have +2 in charisma, so no difference, but a little bit more optimized. I can't help it, okay? I can't help the optimization. We can also change the skills that come with our class. We, as a paladin, we get to choose from 2 skills for our class skills. And then we also already were auto-assigned from our background, animal handling and survival. So intimidation and persuasion were the 2 picks automatically for this. And as much as I think our magical girl can possibly be very persuasive, I don't know about intimidating. I did have a concept in mind about, like, she's so magical and beautiful that she gets a little scary sometimes, but I'm thinking I'm going to reassign intimidation and boost up our insight, because insight is a wisdom-based skill, and, well, you might have noticed that we are not the wisest. So assigning a proficiency bonus will give us a little bit of a boost to areas that we're weaker in. Meanwhile, we're not very smart because we're just a young, naive girl. We don't know the first thing about nothing. Now let's go through. We're gonna have to choose our character, and I'll probably have to cut this out for the YouTube edit video, but I'll just take some time here futzing around, picking out a look for our character that works. Yeah, she's pretty cool. Okay, let's proceed. And, oh, we've got to name our Tav. So, because my original inspiration was based all around this, like, cool axe halberd, I'm going to call her Allie Axeheart. But there we are, Allie Axeheart, ready for adventure. Okay, and then this is where we're going to leave it for now, and we'll be back, and I'll try and adjust my settings here for some hopefully optimized experience, and maybe we'll see if the streaming works. Once again, thank you for your attention, and we'll see you again sometime.